Everyone has a quarter-life crisis now.
Let's retake it.
Everyone has a quarter-life crisis now.
Alright. We could use that part.
It just seems like everyone has a quarter-life crisis now.
Yeah, that's something like, I feel like I've been having a quarter-life crisis since I was 23. And for reference, I'm 28.
Dude, that's
so it's like a solid 5 years that's not gone away.
It's like 2 decades, man. Holy
yeah.
shit. 23 to 28, man, it's a 27-year-old myself. I look at my 23-year-old self, and I honestly, I don't recognize the kid. And he's all over my YouTube channel. It's like, oh, hey, look at little Tanja Sumble. 23, 24, me just holding the camera, thinking that I'm being all philosophical and insightful, and I look back at them like, whatever, if people want to see who that kid was. He was having a quarter-life crisis.
Yeah.
Yeah, now I feel like I'm past the quarter-life crisis part, and I'm more just existing, accepting every day as it is. Like, how would you define crisis?
This is kind of the interesting aspect of it, that I think a lot of it comes from, you can find, there are a bunch of videos. There's almost an endless supply of videos right now of people being like, 28 and I feel like my life is going nowhere. 30 and I feel like my life is going nowhere. Like, insert age past 20 and I feel like my life is going nowhere, or some variant of that. Like, these videos are everywhere. Clearly showing that I think this problem is kind of endemic. Like, everyone is feeling like they're not where they should be, or they're not going where they feel like they should be going.
Yeah.
And I feel like more than anything, this is not... Whenever you're confronted with this kind of problem, it feels so personal.
Yeah,
like you most feel it on a personal level. But given how many people are talking about this, I think this is really indicative of the fact that this is kind of... There's a very awkward adjustment period going on now, where what was expected of you what was expected of a 25 to 30-year-old person when we were growing up as children, meaning the image we saw. What we saw is, this is where you should be when you're like, let's just say 30 years old. This is where you should be at 30. And the reality of what is the opportunities actually available now for people in their 30s have so, like, the system has so changed on a negative level. Like, the job opportunities, economic growth, all this kind of stuff.
What job opportunities?
Yeah, exactly. It's not what it was in, like, 2003, you know?
Yeah.
There's reason to be optimistic in 2003, and as a kid growing up, you just kind of thought, well, that's just how it's going to be. So you kind of internalize this expectation that I should be at a certain place at, let's say, 30. I think that's like a cutoff for most people in their 20s. They're thinking there's an anxiety about where you are at 30, and so that's why even when you're 23, you start getting anxious of like, am I going in the direction where when I'm 30, I feel like I've gotten there? But then, as situations have changed, it's much harder to get to that place where you thought you were supposed to be. The baseline standard at 30 in 2003 is not as achievable now as it was then in 2003.
Right.
But we individually, even if we're aware intellectually of like, yeah, the system's changed and everything, like on a deep personal level, there's still a feeling of failure. There's like, even if you acknowledge it's a system failing, even if you know intellectually it's actually, broadly speaking, a systemic failure, not on us individually, you hyper-focus on the ways that you as an individual maybe failed, and everyone is, instead of accepting the fact that, yes, we're flawed, yes, we all could have done things better, like, that's just a given, like, but we hyper-focus on the ways where, a 30-year-old that achieved what a benchmark back then also made mistakes. You have to also realize that they were making the same mistakes we were, but they were given much more opportunities to make up for that, whereas like now it feels like you have no room to make mistakes.
Yeah.
If you make a mistake, well, bam, you won't reach that bench line. Whereas like the person in 2003, 30-year-old, is in the area of life that you feel like is the baseline, is also probably is just as flawed as you were and made the same amount of mistakes, but they were just given so many more opportunities to make up for them.
Yeah.
Whereas like now it feels like there's less opportunities to make up for your mistakes.
Well, I mean, the thing is, like, Gen Z is just the most extreme generation there really ever has been, because nothing really grounds it in a meta reality. There's no way to define it. Like the boomers, you think TV, television, they walk into a factory, get into a job. Gen X, Daria, Nirvana, MTV, a little bit of economic struggle, but they all sort of had the same experience. Millennials, I think, less so. They're closer to Gen Z, but they still had like the early internet, which is like unique enough and niche enough for it to have its own unique culture that was definable. Whereas now, like there's nothing that really guides any person, any young person, so they feel so lost. And in that feeling of being lost, you think, man, I'm fucking up everything. But that's kind of the realization I arrived at when I was 22, 23, which was there's no structure, there's no pathway for me to follow. So fuck what everybody thinks. I'm just gonna follow my heart and hope that it works out. Don't do that unless you trust yourself. I trusted myself.
Yeah.
Okay, that's the golden rule. If you're like, oh man, I don't know, unless you have like some big.
If you're prone to lots of anxiety, which you are not, pretty much, you're not. I am more of an anxious sort, so I could balance that out a little bit. Like, if you're prone to anxiety, it's harder to do that, and you have to acknowledge your own... A very valuable thing in life is just to acknowledge your own weaknesses, to know what your weaknesses are, and acknowledge them. I'm more anxious than you are, and it's kind of harder to do that when you're more neurotic.
Yeah.
But yes, if you lack that neuroticism, you should totally just follow what you feel is right, I think.
Well, I mean, I am somewhat anxious, and I try to use these strange little, like, I guess, quotes and phrases that I've internalized throughout my life as tools to impede that anxiety. Like, for example, one of my teachers in high school would always tell us, like, take your anxiety, take your self-doubt, bring it behind the shed, and smack it on the head with a shovel. And I always thought that was, like, a surprisingly powerful metaphor. And then the other one was Fight Club, was whenever you feel like shit, everyone you hate wins. And I know that, we're trying to be all PC, lovey-dovey, don't want to hate people. Like, okay, fine. But there's always a part of me that doesn't want to deny myself. If there's an opportunity that I can take, or something I can undertake, I always go for it, because there's that sort of feel of FOMO, which I was telling you about. Like, for example, 2 years ago, I was working as just a normal English teacher, normal elementary school, teaching kids. This was before Tantris Humble, and my life was really boring. I was doing Tantris Humble, but it was before it got to like 1K. And I would wake up at 6:45 in the morning. I would go to school to these kids who hated me. I've already told the story probably many times, but then the teachers around me were all miserable. It didn't feel like I was appreciated, and I would go home every day with like 2 or 3 hours of free time to do what I wanted. And I was so bummed out by that time that usually I just drink myself to sleep, or I'd watch YouTube. And I'm like, I don't want to live my life like this. I have way more potential in my life. So I said, fuck the big man. I quit my job. No plan.
Yeah.
I had no plan. But because I knew that even if I had to go back to my parents' house back in Wisconsin, it would still be better than wasting my time putting my efforts into something I don't personally care about.
I mean, the way you described it, and in past videos you do talk about the misery of being in your mom's basement.
I do.
And in, like, Wisconsin and stuff. But
yes.
The way you phrased it earlier is that your misery at that job was the same there.
Pretty much.
And you're like, well, like, I might as well, like, just, if I have to go back, I'd rather, at least there it's home, right? So at least, like, I'm at home and stuff, but it was an equal level of misery, and just like, screw it, let's just see where the cards take us, right?
Yeah, pretty much, and nobody really cared. I didn't really have a lot of friends that didn't know you, and, like, every time, there's the other thing about, like, about Japan that does kind of bother me a little bit is if you open up about your emotions to most Japanese people, you're usually met with like, oh, I'm sorry, man, I see.
Yeah, end of conversation.
End of conversation, right? And so like, okay.
End of relationship, too.
And yeah, sometimes end of relationship, and you're like, all right, that's obviously not a good course of action to, discuss one's problems in a social environment. So I felt really isolated, but I had kind of a crisis, and I said, fuck it, I want my life to look like something. And I'm not rich, I don't have all the money in the world, but I will say that there's a level of like, we don't control what happens, we control how we react to what happens. And that reaction was very intense. People think I'm insane and fine, but I'm very much the kind of person where I know in the beginning people think I'm insane, but maybe by the very end of some kind of undertaking, everyone's like, wow, you did that thing. And I'm like, you can too, dude.
Yeah.
Stop boxing yourself. So, I don't know. Some people struggle with that. And it's hard for me to put myself in their shoes. The whole, like, analysis paralysis. Oh, I doubt myself. I'm like, so what if I doubt myself? I'm gonna die.
Yeah. I mean, we were just talking about strengths and weaknesses.
Right.
I was describing neuroticism as a bit my weakness, but definitely your strength is just an ability to just go forward like a bull,
No planning. That's
Yeah.
that's my weakness.
And perhaps you want a bit of a synthesis of the both. Perhaps you want the best is to have a bit of both. But yeah, I do think your ability to just go forward is more strength than it is a weakness.
I appreciate that, man. The only thing about when we're talking about the Fire Emblem postulate, I'm trying to stay on topic here because we're talking about quarter life crisis. Like you're trying to come up with a way to define yourself and what you want to be. And I think
in your 20s.
In your 20s, and like for me, the answer is like knowing what creative endeavor you want to go for.
First of all, if you even want to do that. I mean, a lot of people are not at all creatively inclined.
It's true.
And they're the ones who usually look at us as we're crazy.
It's true.
So it's important to acknowledge that they exist.
Yes.
To our chagrin.
Yeah, much to our chagrin. I'm sure that most of you people are creative or thinking people.
Yeah, I don't think you'd be watching this
I don't
channel.
think you'd be watching this small YouTube channel if that were the case. But so there's finding a creative endeavor or something that like you enjoy.
Well, I mean, like seeing if like that is what you care, because if not, then the default option of get the good paying job, get the wife, 2.5 kids, whatever. Just pursuing that normal thing of like get the good paying job, whatever.
Yeah.
Like if you have no creative inclinations and you just want to live like that, then that's not a struggle for you. You already know what to do.
I mean, I've always been a believer of maximizing the potential of every moment. And the funny thing is, like, this is a Stoic idea from Ryan Holiday, but it's funny, like, I think Seneca said this, is where we protect our property, we protect our children, we protect all the things we own, but we waste our time. We don't protect our time. And so I've always been, like, very, very, like, not protective of it, but every moment that I exist, every time I have the opportunity to either speak, create, or do something interesting, I want it to be as good as it can be. So that means like listening to other people, getting the most out of their ideas, enjoying the flavor of the food I'm eating, and really not like if somebody ever asked me like was there ever a time in your life that you didn't do your best? I never want to say yes to that question. I never want to say yes. So every moment counts for me, and I think that's like been very helpful because I don't know, it staves off the crises because I look back in hindsight, I'm like, every moment counted. I know they counted, and I don't regret most of them. And I think I got into an argument with a friend, and he's probably watching. He's like, Tantris, do you regret your life, or do you regret a lot of things in your life? And I in the moment, I'm like, no.
Yeah.
And honestly, like 95% of my life, I don't regret. Maybe there's 5% of my life where I'm like, yeah, okay.
I think the way to phrase it is, you regret things that happened, but you don't regret having done them.
That's a good way of putting it. And that, to me, I don't know, man. I think more people would find peace with themselves with the quarter life crisis if they just trusted themselves and know that the time is passing right.
I think the root of it is just a tremendous anxiety of the future. It's a lot of people feeling like they need to walk this very rigid line, or again, the opportunity to failure isn't really there. So they feel like if they're not constantly winning or constantly working towards something, that their own future is at tremendous stake. They have no faith. I guess they have no faith that things will go well for them in the future, that there'll be any stability or any of this, if they aren't winning now. They're not on the right track now, and that there's no sense that you could take a detour for a bit and then go back on the right track, or you could do this stuff, which plenty of boomers did, for instance, something I wanted to compare is we were watching a couple of Seinfeld clips earlier. And Seinfeld was very much about these characters who, like George, for instance, is constantly portrayed as this failure, and then he ends up working like these nice cushy office jobs, which. Like, again, I watched this stuff as a kid. As a kid, this kind of gave me the impression of, like, yeah, you could be a fuck-up, and the minimum standard in life is you could at least get a six-figure job in an office at Yankees or something, even as a fuck-up. Like, as George is a loser, right? They portray him as a loser, and he gets these nice jobs and stuff.
Right.
And, I mean, that was always a fiction, but I think there was this perception that, like, yeah, you could fuck around your 20s in the 90s. Like, if you were young in the 90s, you could fuck around, but then, you could settle into something nice in your 30s easily enough. But that semblance of you could just fuck around for a while is not there anymore.
Right.
And there's, instead of an anxiety of, like, I don't even have the chance to fuck up. So then people get even more scared to take risks, which kind of, I think, you're saying that don't worry about taking risks. Just go for what you think is right. But there are a lot of people who feel like if they can't afford the losses if they were to take a risk and it didn't go the way they wanted to.
And that's very self-aware of you. I get like very passionate about this because I'm a very navel-gazing person naturally. But and you do remind me of other TV shows from that era, like 1987 to now we have The Simpsons. But I think people have forgotten that, like, if you watch the first Simpsons episode, I think like the animation's all fucked up, and it's like Marge and Homer putting the kids to sleep, and they say like don't let the bedbugs bite, or like some abstract phrase that can be interpreted like as something scary is going to happen. And at the very end of it, you get like a whole family coming together, sleeping in the same bed, and they're all like whole, I guess. It's like the mom, dad, the two, and the three kids are sleeping together, and it's like that was just normal in the 1980s. And I also think that, I think it was What If Alt History originally said this, but The Simpsons also portrayed like that a lower middle class family could still have a relatively decent sized house and go on vacation twice a year. And like you think about that now, you're like, you're out of your fucking mind. You are living on a different planet if you think that you can go on a vacation to Portugal twice a year.
It's just kind of funny how that shifted, because I do think that the Simpsons is basically 90s. I guess it started late 80s, right?
Yeah.
It was basically showing what it was like in the 90s. Already in the 2000s, you see this actually, the reality of it shifting, in that I think the number one portrayal of the lower middle class family existence, is Malcolm in the Middle.
Yeah.
It's so accurate, and already Malcolm in the Middle, like it's already like the pro of Malcolm in the Middle, that the family has is they have a house. They do have a house, okay. But everything else is basically the same as now. So they at least have a house, but like they're in huge debt. They can't fucking afford anything. They can't, all the stresses of like instability and lack of economic, economic stability essentially is all there. The only pro that they have now versus that they had then versus now is they did have a house.
Yeah, that pretty much sums it up. A little bit more difficult for me than it is for you. You always say like 2017, but like I have like these faint memories of the 2000s when I was in elementary school and a little bit of middle school. I guess like the very tail end of middle school, where like I don't know, things are just. Some of it could be that I was a kid. But if you look at the sociological behavior of all the adults around you, I remember like there being some bit of the doom and gloom from the Gen Xers I was around. But for the most part, like no one ever really had I used to have so my mom was really poor. We had roommates. We had a lot of roommates. And again, I know that's like horrible to admit, but one of the roommates was actually very smart, and he worked in a factory. And he would come home and usually talk about some strange article that he had watched, or like an arcane, like a YouTube video talking about an arcane topic on computers. And one of the things that he would be excited about was like, oh, the simulation has officially been predicted for like, well, not the simulation, the what is it when AI becomes smarter than humans? What is it? It's,
it's the singularity.
Singularity.
21, 22.
20. It was like 2024 or 2025 that he would tell me, and there was always like an optimism about the future. No one ever was like upset that the future was coming. It was gonna be better. I even remember like in 2012 when Obama was reelected. Like on my Facebook page, there was this big banner of Obama, and he's like smiling. It's like 4 more years. Like, and
change. That's what he promised.
Right.
And you know what? Actually, it's interesting. If you don't mind me,
go on.
Swerving a little bit, is, up until like Obama, like if you think about it, like the 2000s economic boom, like things are so positive. It was so funny that there's so much positivity associated with Obama, but like the change that happened post Obama. I'm not blaming it on him, but I'm just saying I think it's funny that he campaigned on change, but the change we overall got in the world has been a negative change.
Yeah.
So he did bring change, but like not the one we hoped for.
Well, and the thing about that change is it's so nuanced and hard to put into words, but we all sort of feel it.
Mm-hmm.
That's kind of what I what I always try to get at is like 2019 really was the last like okay year probably. You say 2017 was when the world ended, but I remember like because like the summer of 2019 I had gotten back. Go on.
Yeah, I mean like COVID, like 2019 was like it's 2020 with COVID starting where it really went down.
Yeah. Well, I mean like it was like 2019 happens, and I remember going to this big music festival with my dad. And I was like going back to my mom's place, and I was still like writing songs. Everyone was going outside, like that was still normal. And then all of a sudden, like in the middle of my senior year, when COVID happens, like even when I was in Rhode Island, that it was such an immediate shift. It's like in 2 weeks, like the world that we live in now happened.
Yeah.
And I don't like. Did you feel that? Do you remember that? Like. It was like 2019, early 2020, still 2019 feels, and then COVID happens, everything changes.
Yeah.
You're in a new paradigm.
Yeah.
It's overnight.
It was very explicit, yeah. To the point where I questioned to the degree that it was not premeditated in some way. I'm very skeptical that this is not somewhat premeditated.
Serpent ZA, friends. I mean, I was watching that guy when
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, he was talking about the...
Yeah. That was right around the time that channel really got popular. Serpent ZA and Laoe 86.
I'm sorry, I was speaking in a more overtly conspiratorial way, where like I really do think like there is a deliberate attempt to make sure that the 2020s feel cut off from 2010s. To and that's why I feel like it was no coincidence that the moment 2020 happened, they went full in on like even though late 2019 is when the coronavirus, whatever, Wu flu, that's how I personally call it, when it came out, like it was actually late 2019.
Yeah. But
it was like very explicitly 2020. It almost feels like it was like a cabal of the elites. Where like, you know what, this is the perfect opportunity to just really like we can end the last we could solidly end the feeling of the 2010s here and just and set the tone for the 2020s right here, right now.
Yeah.
And I think they went full for it.
Well, then that's the thing about the 2010s that like almost frustrates me right now is I remember at the very end of the decade, back in 2018, 2019, and like I still having the quarter life crisis and things, thinking about like, what is my life gonna be? Everyone was talking about like nothing defines the 2010s. Nothing defines the 2010s.
Actually, I don't remember that, but...
You don't remember that?
I don't remember that, but I could believe that, being a thing.
I think the video ultimately got like a mixed reaction, but like there were enough people that did kind of believe that at the time.
Mm-hmm.
And now that 5 years has passed since the end of that decade, I'm like, no, clearly that there was a feeling, and I think the farther away we get, it's going to be like the 2000s and the 90s where like we all get nostalgic about it, maybe even yearn for a past that never existed, but
I mean, I will say, like, the first, especially, like, this is a topic of last video, but the first half of the 2010s really was an optimistic time, I feel like. Like, overall, like, especially compared to now.
Yeah.
I'm just thinking about all the stupid memes in high school.
Yeah.
Like, YOLO.
Yeah.
Still remember YOLO.
It's not YOLO, it's YOLO, because it's you live only once.
Yeah, but like that, I mean, that was just a justification for doing stupid shit, basically. But I don't know, there's just like,
Yeah. Carpe diem for idiots.
yeah, kind of, I don't know, like a lack of seriousness in a sense. Like, we're so serious now. That's kind of the issue. That kind of also ties into like the core life crisis thing.
Not so serious.
We're just so serious now.
Yeah, I mean, I was just, it's a strange time to be alive, man, because it's like there's, it's like there is no future. It feels like there is no future.
That's the thing, and that's what I think that's what creates a lot of anxiety, especially in neurotic types.
Yeah.
And I think we've been conditioned, we're being conditioned to feel neurotic. But like, if you're less neurotic, you feel like there's no future, and you're like, cool, I'm already living in the now anyway, so I don't fucking care.
Yeah.
Whereas like if you're neurotic, you're constantly anxious about the future, and like when you feel like there's no future, that does not do your anxiety any favors.
Yeah, no, you're right. You're right. It's certainly a good point. I think living in the moment is a good way to stave off that anxious feeling, but as opposed to giving in to the lack of a future that we all feel, I think somewhat creating your own structure with a proper undergirding is a good alternative, and that's like what I like to do, where future's fucked, maybe I'm not going to be able to work in this system. Like, what are alternatives that I can do? We're all, like, the weird people. Like, actually, one of the videos on the Tuchus channel that I made a long time ago is, like, being a loner. It's one of the best things that ever happened to me. Because I was never afraid to think on my own terms. And maybe I wasn't right, but at the very least, I was hungry for a real answer and not satisfied with the slop that the mainstream was feeding me. And what I think now is maybe we don't have like a strong future, but you can find meaning in like good relationships. And again, I guess I'll go back to like the creation thing. I don't know, like if you're not a creative person, I don't know, like maybe they're watching this video for a different reason, but I'm under the impression that everyone watching my channel is like somewhat creative. They like drawing, they like thinking, they like reading, and engaging in some kind of like abstract activity like that. To some degree, justifies the suffering of life in spite of the lack of a palpable future. I don't really have too much else to say, though. How about you?
I mean, I guess well, add to that, like, yeah, I mean, like as they say, we all want to create, ideally, we all want to create, but we also all need to eat. And the problem is, like, I think, like, a source of anxiety is, like, yeah, I would love to be working on, like, creative stuff, but, like, most people don't feel like, even if they are creatively inclined, that they could realistically ever make any significant amount of money from it. So then, and we're so economically strapped, where, like, even then, like, you have to focus on, like, being able to eat. But then, like, if you're spending all your time working, then you're creatively starving. So you're starving in one. And I think that just feeds into the anxieties that people are feeling. Like, okay, yeah, it's all well and good. Like, I would like to be creative, and I could do that. But then, like, that takes time, and that's time I could be reinvesting into a skill set that could be more marketable, for instance. I mean, this is such a shitty way of looking at it, but this is how we've been conditioned in this bad economy to think that why would I spend 3 hours of my life, why would I spend it, like, say, 30 minutes to an hour every day learning how to draw, when, let's just face it, I'm 25, not me personally, this is a hypothetical example of a person, but let's just say you're 25, you're like, I've never really drawn seriously before. Let me just start drawing because I've always wanted to. But also, I'm either underemployed or unemployed, and I need work soon, and my parents are gonna kick me out of my house. Well, it's like, yeah, it's all well and good to want to spend your time drawing, but it's like, you have to focus on the more just necessities of surviving, and I think a lot of people like that's the anxiety. And then even when they do get a job that at least can pay for their survival, it's usually a job that demands so much of them that then again they're creatively starved. And again, I think this just adds to the whole anxiety of like people just don't feel like their life is going where they're going. They don't like where their life is going, and they just feel trapped. They're like, I'm 20, like, I'm in my mid-20s, and I can't see a positive way where I will be getting what I want out of life.
Yeah.
And I do think it's all well and good to tell people to do the stuff you want to do, but there are real reasons why people can't, and why, or at the very least why they feel anxious about using up their time in such a way when they feel like their time might be more valuable used in another way, even if they don't want to use their time that way. But like that economic instability and anxiety just keeps creeping into their head. And this is why I do think it's valuable to at least acknowledge. Can't do anything about it, but it's valuable to at least acknowledge that this is a systemic. I think this is all due to a systemic failing, not to personal failings. And I think that can at least help alleviate people of their bad feelings and of the negativity they perhaps feel about where their own life circumstances are heading. Is just at least knowing that it's less on average, because I don't know you, it's always an individual thing. I don't know, for some people it might be more of a personal failing, but on average, I would say, generally speaking, it has more to do with systemic failings than with personal failings.
Yeah, the systemic failings is pretty spot on. Maybe I'm just a little bit too stubborn to completely relate to people who are so anxious that they're like, oh, I can't do it, or like I don't have the economic means, and that's really real. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
I'm not saying like, oh, just get over it, bro. That's not what I mean. It's just, if I were in the same position, there's just too much of a fire burning in my soul that would be like, I can figure it out. I can figure it out. There's something I can do, and it's not even. I guess what you can learn from that is, even if you're in like one of the shittiest situations ever, there's still you can find that passion in your soul, and I really think it can exist for most people. If you could find like what you want to do, and you just need to find a way to do it. Even those economically difficult situations won't impede you from doing something cool. But I do hear your point, and it's completely valid, and maybe I'm creatively delusional.
No, I think we've hit we've had a good bit of a tennis match here, and all in good spirits.
For sure.
No, but what I guess what I'm really saying is I just think that I don't think either of us are wrong.
No.
I think that it's a complex topic, and there is no answer for it. But I think we both offer different. I think we both kind of just shared different perspectives that can perhaps alleviate some of the anxieties people are feeling.
Yes.
At least emotionally. Of course, we can't help with materially.
Oh no, dude, I totally feel you, and I guess like I've said this off camera, but I'll say it for the first time on camera. Is whenever we do these podcasts, it always feels like you are mapping something out very analytically, and then I'm just describing what it feels like to be there, in my own personal way. You guys do with that what you will. You ready to end it?
Yeah.
Scrutly Mutley.